Hey everyone, back again with Whitney Fallon. As you know, we have spoken about the eight holistic wellness elements of life. Today, we are going to focus on three main, I would call them the three core, the three fundamental, the basic holistic elements of living a very holistic and balanced life. I welcome Whitney Fallon. Stay tuned till the end because this one is going to be a power packed, super wisdom session today. Welcome, Whitney.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here and talk more about these three elements.
Yes, today we are talking about the three core elements. By these core elements, what I'm trying to say is that if you have a list of all the eight, these are the three to focus on first. These are the basic, the fundamental, and the journey to living a holistic life should start from these three and then move it forwards. Okay, Whitney, can you briefly introduce your approach to holistic wellness just for the audience?
Yeah, so I'm Whitney Fallon. I just to give you a little background about me, I'm a nurse practitioner and a holistic wellness and wealth strategist. And I help people transform their lives from the inside out. So in the business of changing lives, we're addressing the whole person, the mind, the body, and the soul, and even our finances. I kind of talk about that as well. But I really help high achievers and heart led entrepreneurs kind of break free from burnout and really align with their design so that they can thrive in every area of life.
Remember that, and there's a message to the audience that it all begins from the inside to the out. A lot of people are looking for transformations simply on the external or on the face, on the physical, but it's inside to outside. What is within will manifest on the external.
Yes.
On that note, uh, from the inside to the outside, uh, how can people tune into what their body truly needs?
So the first thing I would kind of talk about is more the mindset piece, because I think really that's where a lot of it initially starts. But when we talk about what the body really needs, it's kind of tuning into yourself and figuring out how to listen to your body. One of the first ways of doing that is really listening to what's going on in your mind because your mind is your inner operating system. Your thoughts shape your entire reality that you have. If your mind is cluttered with a bunch of fear, doubt, your distractions going on, or if you're suffering with wellness or financial issues, that stress and mental overwhelm can cause some dysregulation. And, especially nowadays in this chronic busyness lifestyle that we have, and it's go, 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 and things are right here in front of you, it feels like we have to go at that higher pace a lot of times, and our bodies can get overwhelmed with that. But when you kind of tap more into yourself and kind of know, okay, I need some time to kind of decompress, de-stress, help to kind of clear some of that clutter. And, in a body perspective, our brains do that when we sleep. You know, Acronyms or things that have said you can sleep when you die, sleep's overrated, those sort of things. Like it's okay, you can catch up on your sleep. But sleep debt really impacts how your brain is able to consolidate and decompress all those things so that your body can operate. especially when it comes to your immune system, your mood, your hormones, a lot of those different things. So, when it comes to, how can you really tune into what your body needs is first listening to your body, having some time to really reflect and tap into your intuition of how your body is feeling. How are you responding?
The first thing to do is the very basic thing is to ensure that the body, the mind are well rested through proper, good quality sleep. Because if you're not properly rested, the mind will not be able to function and it will lead to a domino effect of making the wrong choices. This is something that I personally resonate. The day when I'm sleep deprived, I am craving the caffeine, the sugar, and all the unhealthy stuff. The day I'm well rested, I don't need anything. I'm just happy
Mhm.
without caffeine and sugar and all that. This is something that I personally resonate with. So that was one of the uh, elements, and I would call this is between the physical and the mind, both, because
Mhm.
rest is needed by both the body and the mind. Now we focus on the spiritual wellness side. Can spirituality be integrated into a busy daily life without it being very overwhelming?
So, when we talk about spirituality, everyone hears that word and they may have a different feeling or approach or understanding of what that is. But really, spirituality is just, your soul, your source of purpose and peace, and how you find that purpose and peace. Your soul, really knows the way of your wellness journey. And it's about learning to listen to that. Like we talked about some of that intuition. Excuse me. Some of the ways to kind of do that in your daily life and tapping into that intuition is to have some of those times that you slow down. Some of those times where you allow your mind to be able to wander, to be able to rest, to be able to process and think. Even just, going for a walk. And getting your body moving, oftentimes you can kind of start to think about things and tap things in when you're not focusing on something else that's distracting your attention. For some people, tapping in spiritually is meditating. And there's lots of forms of meditation that you can do. It doesn't have to be a monk sitting in silence for hours for it to be effective meditation. But it's learning how to, when those thought worries and things start going on, learning how to redirect it or pause it. It's learning how to say, okay, I acknowledge what's there, but I'm gonna put it on another box for another time, and I'm gonna go back to that silence or to that quietness again. Sometimes we do need to explore some of those thoughts that kind of come up, but other times just kind of allowing it to kind of come back. For some people, it can also be, energetically connecting with the earth, like putting your bare feet on the ground. That is a great way to kind of spiritually connect with nature, with the world around you. That's something that I do most days, walking around in my yard barefoot. Watch out for the dog poop spots, but uh, definitely that helps to kind of calm my energy. And oftentimes it gives me a lot of inspiration. That's typically the time I hop on Facebook Live or share a message or what's going on, because that's when I get inspired and those things come to me. So, a lot of times we're in prayer or in ways that we're seeking that spiritual voice. We're seeking to hear or get validation that that spiritual source is there. And sometimes it feels like you're asking and you're speaking out all the time. One of my friends was actually just sharing about this last night, that sometimes I feel like there's silence when we're praying and we're asking for these things. It sometimes feels like those answers don't come to us right away. And it's like, are you listening out there? The universe paying attention to what your soul is just deeply yearning for. And it is. But sometimes it doesn't come directly right when you want it to. Sometimes it shows up a couple hours later. Sometimes it shows up months later, years later. Those answers don't always come right away, or maybe not right now. And sometimes we get frustrated, overwhelmed with that. But then, hindsight, when we do get the answer later on of maybe I wanted this specific job and it didn't turn out right, and I might have been completely upset about it. But come to find out later on that that job was not where I needed to be. That business closed down 2 months later, and I was being protected from having to go through something crazy. So in the moment, we may feel, things aren't working out for us. And I know you were talking about being resilient earlier when we had a little discussion. And that is definitely something that we all need to kind of work on, that resiliency when things don't go right, when things aren't going as planned. How do we bounce back from that? How do we reflect on that? How do we tune into that? And to me, that is practicing spirituality.
I believe spirituality is a daily practice. It's not just a concept to be read. It is a daily practice. And on that note, the story where you mentioned that somebody lost their interview and they figured out that 2 months later the company went bankrupt. If I'm not wrong, this comes from the book The Power of Subconscious Mind, because there is a story in this book which talks exactly about somebody losing out on a job interview, and then they found out that that job was not even for them, but then that company as well. In a month or two, they went out of the business. So I have been through one experience very similar like that. It was brutal for me because I was only 20 at that time with not much life experience. I believe that life actually begins once you turn 18, because from that point onwards, you're actually getting the real life experience in the world where we live. And I
Yes, definitely.
um, that to come across with people like yourself, and for all the audience who is watching this, this is not just a podcast or something. This is this could be a message specifically for you. And if you're hearing this now, then you were meant to listen to this now. Now, the question is that from tomorrow morning, what new habit or what changes are you going to make? What action are you going to take? Otherwise, this is just theory.
Hmm.
This brings me to the next segment, which is mindset is such a key pillar in overall wellness, especially when it comes to taking action and beating procrastination. Why is it that? Why is it that way?
So Like you were talking about the power of the subconscious mind and what they like. And I have a similar story too, kind of about the job thing as well.
Please
Um,
share.
there was a job that I thought was like my dream job. I was going to be working in sleep medicine. I was going to be helping people get more sleep, doing that in more of a holistic way, educating them and doing all that. And this nurse practitioner job opened up for me to have that. And I was super excited and pumped. And there were some things about it I wasn't really excited about. Like I was going to have to travel a little bit initially until this new clinic worked out and some things, which I was fine with. But when I started to dive into the contract and understanding some of the things they wanted me to commit to, my gut was like, no, this is not the right space. Because some of the contract, it said that I couldn't write a book or do speaking opportunities without getting an approval. So even to hop on here and have a podcast and talk, I'd have to get approval from my job. And to me, that is not something I wanted to do because I wanted to be able to get out more education, not just within my little circle that I was in, but to more people and make a bigger impact. And so, even though it was my dream job from years ago, in that moment, I knew that my future self was like, no, that's not where we're going. There's so much more. And it may not be as easy of a job. It's not as consistent, but that is kind of where you need to go. And that was a tough decision for me to make. And, when it comes to mindset, we talk about that when we're going through big decision making, processes, our mind, our belief patterns that we have, what other people tell us. When we seek out advice from other people, we're like, well, this person said I should do that because then I'll have stable, insurance and coverage for that. And this person says I should do that because I'll make more money. But even though there's those other thoughts and other things that are going on, I had to really tune into myself and understand what it was that I believed. What were my goals? My, subconscious was like, oh, well, that'll be so much easier than doing your own thing. Like I had to break through some of those fears that came through, those doubts, some of those distractions from what other people said, because managing that mental overload too, like when you spend too much time in that, overthinking, over analysis, that what we call analysis paralysis, you're analyzing everything so much that you don't make a decision. That's managing your time because the longer you take to make that decision, the longer time that you've spent not doing what you needed to do. And oftentimes, our mind kind of keeps us stagnant in that, thinking state. And sometimes it hinders us from moving forward. And sometimes that can actually be some unresolved emotions within ourselves, some inner healings that we need to do to release that so that we can make some more of those decisions. And we talked about even sleep, how that can impact your decision making. There are studies that show if you don't sleep, you're more likely to crave more carbs and sugary foods. So it's scientifically proven in
And
how it works in your
caffeine,
body
special
and
caffeine,
caffeine.
especially your
Yes.
coffee, Red Bull, Monster Energy, all these things.
Yeah. So maybe instead of that, you just take a power nap. Yeah, it's kind of hard to do if you're driving though. But yes, our minds control so much. And I mean, I have seen this doing some more hypnotic work with a lot of my clients that oftentimes we get overwhelmed with what our minds are telling us and we make it out to be this big scary monster or thing within our heads that it's really not as scary once we actually get it out of our head, when we talk about it, when we write about it, when we process it in a way that we're able to make sense of it and be able to make that decision.
I think to overall summarize is make sure you are well rested. Make sure you connect with your soul. And I believe the best time to do that would be the first thing in the morning. And the last thing before going to bed, that's when the subconscious is the most And the third takeaway from this session uh, for you is write down, journal your mental blocks so that you know exactly why you are procrastinating, why you're not able to take action. Maybe you can take some other action that is demanded by the soul. So, in today's session, we covered three things: the body, the mind, and the soul in the form of mental, physical, and spiritual. These are the first three essential. Only if you are able to have a firm grip on these three, then you can focus on the other five elements. Last thoughts, any last thoughts, and what would be the next? If let's say I have the mind, the body, and the soul in a decent place, what wo- what would be the next holistic element that would be the most important if you were to go in a chronological order?
So my last kind of message, is wellness. It's not about what you eat or how you move. It's about alignment, being in line with your soul. When your mind is clear, your body is supported, your spirit is grounded, you can become unstoppable. And that other thing that I would say would be finances. Because I know right now with this economy and things shifting and changing, that's a big stressor that impacts the mind, body, and soul and can wreak havoc on your nervous system, aligning your decisions that you are. And sometimes your finances are a mirror of what your mindset, your boundaries, and your beliefs are. So to me, that's another big one. And I think if you can get all of those things in line, you can be unstoppable. If you are ready to design a life that reflects your true potential, that mental, physical, spiritual, financial, then reach out, connect with me. You can book a free breakthrough session and we can begin custom designing what I call your wellness renovation.
Thank you so much. The fourth one is financial, just to summarize for the audience. Thank you. Thank you so much.